If you haven't noticed, the spices that you can get in the store are getting more and more ridiculous in prices these days, but they are truly what makes food taste good. And in the event that you are preparing for the future like I am, it might be wise to just take a few minutes to look in your cabinet and see what spices you need to stock up on for the long term and what ones might be easy for you to perhaps make yourself so that you don't even have to rely on the store or the prices as they go up. So today, stay with us in the next few minutes. We're going to talk about the easy, simple process of making your own minced onion and also your own onion powder. As you're putting together your pantry for the days to come, you might have noticed how wonderful it is to have spices from really all over the world. And they are pretty expensive right now in the grocery store shelves, so it's good to stock up on the ones that you might not be able to get a hold of later, but learn the ones that you might be able to make yourself. And like I said earlier, onion salt, onion powder, and minced onion, those are something that are really often the same price as the other spices in the grocery store, but we can often grow our own onions and then harvest them and make them into our own powders and minced versions to use in so many recipes for our pantries. That's what we're doing today. And you can really use about any kind of onion. You know that there are hundreds of varieties out there, but the three main ones you often see in the store are going to be white onions, yellow onions, and red or purple onions. Any of those will work just fine for this, but keep in mind that the white ones are generally going to be not only the cheapest to purchase, they are also going to be the strongest. But for the long run, when they're on my shelf a few years from now, I'll be glad I had chosen the onions that had the strongest flavor to begin with. Also, I would say this, they are known to go bad the quickest. So of all the onions, if you have to purchase them or if you bring them in from the garden, just know you want to use them relatively soon because they don't have all of the things that make them stay very long without going bad. So we're going to go ahead and make some today. All you need are a couple of different main things here. And first one, of course, is going to be a basket full of onions, whichever kind you've got, and they can be store-bought or from your own garden. You're going to want a good dehydrator. And of course, if I had my very favorite, I would want an Excalibur. But some of us just have the plain model that was probably at a sporting goods store or Walmart or such. This is an open country digital dehydrator, and the main thing that you need to make sure you've got is the ability to set a timer on it as well as set the temperature to be very specific for what you're doing. Now, if you don't have a dehydrator, yes, you can do this even in a solar oven or outside in a sunny day or in your own oven inside. So keep that in mind. You're also going to just want a good bowl so that as we process these onions, we can throw them all in there before we spread them on the sheets of the dehydrator. You're going to want a good sturdy cutting board and preferably a serrated edge knife. That just seems to cut through the onions a little bit better. And then of course some place to throw the refuse. So get ready to see me cry a little bit, but let's go ahead and get started cutting these onions up. So let's start by getting these onions peeled, and I'm going to show you the quickest way I've learned, and that's not to try and fight with it this way one little piece at a time. That's just going to be annoying and take way too long. But if you cut the head and the tail off with a thin slice, here I'll cut one side off, and I'm going to cut the other one off. Once I've got the head and the tail cut off, I can really just take and cut down one slice, and I can feel it under my knife. Then I can usually peel off one layer really quick and easy, and I've got the onion ready to go to be cut up. Wasn't that quicker? And so much less trouble. So now that we've got it peeled, I'm going to go ahead and you can cut it however you want, but you need to dice it in as small of pieces as you can get it. And so it might be easier to either cut it in half and put it on there, start dicing it up. That's probably what I'll do. You just want to keep in mind the smaller the dice, the better. And then I'm going to turn it to the side. And this was originally the head and the tail. So now I'm starting down that way, and it makes it nice and tiny. The tinier the better. But the more that I cry, the more that the chunks get bigger and bigger by the time I get done, just because I'm in a hurry. Oops. Okay, before I completely despair and give up on life, we've made it through enough onions and I am crying already enough. So we're gonna stop here and it's time to wash our hands. Now, there are a million different ways that they've told us that we can get that onion smell off our hands. And I don't know which is the best, but I'm gonna just use a little bit of dish soap, and then I've been told that a stainless steel knife in my hands, rubbing that in my hands, is supposed to take off that smell. And I don't know if it really works or not, but that's what a grandma has told me, so I'll at least give it a shot here. Before we spread these on here, I have to tell you, I just smelled my hands and I don't smell any onion. So for all you grandmas out there who did this growing up, thank you for passing on that knowledge to us. Wash your hands with a stainless steel knife to get the onion smell out. All right. I wanted to show you this really quick. This is what the tray of the dehydrator looks like, and really with the small size of the onion, they are going to fall through. So if you have a lot of these little smaller mesh tray liners, you can put those on each tray. I don't, so I just make sure this is at the very bottom, and as they dehydrate, they're going to fall down and be caught on this, and it's going to be just fine. I just want to make sure you recognize that, because yes, they will fall through those little holes as they dry and get smaller. But let's get started. We'll just spread evenly on each of the trays from the dehydrator those onions and get them started at about 135 degrees for about 6 to 12 hours, depending on how full you've got the dehydrator and how small you made those chunks. I should have mentioned earlier that 135 in Fahrenheit is going to be somewhere around 57 degrees Celsius. So that's what you would set it on if you are using Celsius to measure it. Okay, if you have an oven and that's your only option, or you're using a solar oven, you're going to just set it on its very lowest setting. You're going to spread these out on a cookie sheet or several cookie sheets in one single layer and put them on the different trays in your oven. Set it at its lowest temperature, which for mine is 170 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's somewhere around 80 degrees Celsius. You'll want to set it on that lowest temperature, and if you have the circulation as an option on your oven, definitely use it for this. Don't let them get brown, so check them often. You don't want them to turn brown and crispy. You just want them to get barely golden and very dry. So this is going to take a long time, and your whole house is going to smell a lot like onions for a few hours. I would say give it at least a day, the house, and you might love that or you might not. For me, I don't mind. It's a pleasant smell of aroma of drying onions for about 24 hours before it all goes away. We're going to let this set though and come back and visit it here in just about 6 hours, and we'll see where we've gotten. Okay, I've got good news and bad news. The bad news is that I had to get busy with some obligations and let these go a lot longer than I expected. The good news is that's not a bad thing. The good news is as long as you keep the dehydrator going, you're fine. You can't really over dehydrate your onions. However, you might want to put the dehydrator out in the garage or even set it outside. I had to do that with mine because it was getting to really smell like onions inside. And because I had obligations, I needed to come back to this later. But if I were to have let it turn off and then set, it would immediately have started to soak up the moisture again, and you can't afford to do that or it ruins these. You need them to be nice and crispy, which is exactly what they are, because I made sure I went and added a few hours to the time. And so now as I take off the lid and look, they are perfect golden brown and every bit of the moisture is gone, which is just what we want. So let's go ahead and get these out of their trays. Okay, we've got them all processed. You can see this wonderful bowl filled up. Incidentally, this amount of onion flakes has come from approximately 3 medium-sized onions, and that comes to not even a full pint like you see here. This is about 3 medium-sized onions, so it really does shrink down quite a bit, but this is going to be fantastic, and the way that I'll store it is in a tightly lidded jar with a little silica gel packet in it to absorb any moisture, and that's all I've got to do. It should last indefinitely if I've stored it nice and tight with no moisture. Now, if you'd like to turn the onion flakes or minced onion into a powder form, I want to encourage you, you've got 2 options. Well, actually 3. If you've got some sort of a nice strong blender, you could just blend it up real good and get it into a powder form. Or like you've seen before, you can have a dedicated coffee grinder that will work for that. Again, this uses electricity, and so I would just encourage all of us. These are cheaper than they've ever been before. This is a little manual coffee grinder that you can use just for your herbs and spices. What you want to look for is a stainless steel unit, and it just has the little bottom part that comes right off and holds whatever you've ground up. I've already got a little bit of onion that I've ground up in there. What you want to make sure is that you don't get one that is so cheap that the grinder mechanism inside is plastic. You want to make sure it's a nice ceramic grinder and that the body of it is stainless steel. But it should have a little glass thing here that shows you just how much you've ground, and you literally just put your spices in the top and put it to work, grinding it up. It's absolutely easy to take apart and clean, and it's all manual, so even if the electricity goes out, you can have whatever you need ground up just fine. Or, I guess a 4th option would be a mortar and pestle. You've got lots of options to make this into a great onion powder, and then you can use it in so many recipes. Okay, I hope this was simple enough for you to try at home. Remember, you don't have to use a dehydrator. You could use your oven or even do it outside in a solar oven or just spread out on cookie sheets on a really hot, dry day. Will you take the time to go out and share this video with someone you love that it might help? Thank you also to those of you who are supporting us on Patreon. We thank you so much for making this channel possible. And if by chance you're new here and haven't subscribed yet, we want to have you as one of us. So subscribe and hit that bell and let us hear from you in the comments section. We love hearing your adventure stories and what you have to say about these videos. All right, I'll see you next time. Go out and be a blessing to someone today. Hey, before you go, I want to share this. This is out of Joshua, which is one of my favorite books of the Bible. And it's the verse that comes right before my very favorite verse, Joshua 1:9. This is Joshua 1, verse 8. It says, "This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success." Now go spread the word.